This video today that I'm going to share with everyone is my Promaster Ram self-build part 3 cabinets. Now I'm probably going to have to break this down to A and B because this is going to be a long video otherwise. So I'll probably break it down into 2 parts. But this is cabinet build. Now boy do I wish I had this video when I started to build my van, because it would have made things a lot easier. So if you're going to build a van, or if you build a van, or if you know someone that's going to build a van, I highly recommend this video because I'm going to share some secrets and some tricks that I learned in School of Hard Knocks 101. And I learned some stuff. So what I'm going to tell you, in my van I had some criteria for my cabinets. The first criteria I had was my cabinets had to be able to hold my stuff. Yeah, that makes sense. Got to hold my stuff. Second thing is they can't squeak. They can't rattle. They need to be able to withstand a crash. Now, come on, I never had any crash test dummies and never did a crash test with a van and kitchen cabinets, but I wanted to make them solid and sturdy, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. I had ideas, and I would get information a little bit at a time from different sources. So what I have in my van, I have 3 types of cabinets. Now, right behind me, there's an overhead cabinet. My other 2 type of cabinets both go down to the floor. One is a floor to ceiling cabinet. The other one is a variation, which is like what you'll see in most kitchens. It's a floor, and it stops at about 3 feet and has a countertop on it. And whoa, what do I got? I got a crock pot cooking dinner. That's going to taste good. And I have another one on the other side, okay? Floor to 3 feet high. Going to the back of my van, I have 2 cabinets above the bed, and they're both overhead cabinets. They're 60 inches long. 60 inches is 5 feet. There's 2 doors on those cabinets. So there's 2 of them, one on each side. As you come forward in the van, I have my first floor to ceiling cabinet. And it goes all the way up to the ceiling, which makes it pretty hard to get that right, because it has to fit exactly in there. And then here's another one on the opposite side of the wall. This is a driver's side, floor to ceiling. Then coming forward, I have what I call my utility cabinet. It's a floor to ceiling. And in my utility cabinet, I have the controls for my charge controller for my solar panels. And here's a controller for the inverter. And then I have a stereo. I have a microwave that I don't use that much. And then in here's my utility cabinet where I have some food and some things. And I have all of my solar equipment that I will be discussing in another video. What I'd like to say is, in this door, notice I have 2 baskets that I bought at Walmart. And I have these in a lot of my cabinets, or something like this in my cabinets. At the bottom, I have my fuse box, and what I have is I have some fuses over here for my 12 volt, and then for my 110 volt AC, I have some circuit breakers. Coming forward, across from that, I have a 3-foot cabinet, and I have countertop, and this is Corian countertop. The other side, I have my sink, and I have Corian countertop. I have my fridge. I have a couple drawers. And then I have another storage area. Above the sink, I have another overhead cabinet. In this overhead cabinet, you'll notice I use these type of hinges on all of my cabinets. They require 3 holes to be drilled. And I have 2 of them. And I do have one of the most important things is this hydraulic lift, because if this wasn't installed, I would have to be holding this cabinet up all the time. The good part of it is this lift holds a cabinet and I don't have to hold it anymore. And I was smart because these were pretty inexpensive, so I bought a whole other set of them. So I'll have a replacement. It'll take me a couple minutes to replace one of them. When you first build your van and start to do your cabinets, it's real important to understand that there's no level, there's no plumb. It's not like you're building a house and there's nothing that's square or straight. So it's going to be a little bit of a rough job. And what I determined very early on is my floor had to be the reference, because you have to have something for a reference. And I had a guy that worked with me. He wanted to jack up the van every single day, and he wanted to get it exactly level. And I said, oh, what's the chances of that? Getting exactly level every single day by jacking it up. I'm telling you, just use the floor as a reference. That is your magnetic north. That is your reference, okay? That's your plumb. All my cabinets were based off the floor, even the overhead cabinets. Did you ever hear me say that when you build a van, there's a lot of decisions that you got to make? And that's all I ever thought about it. Decision after decision. So now, what am I going to build my cabinets out of? I didn't like oak. And then I thought about it and I said, you know what? I'd like maple wood. So I use maple plywood to build my cabinets. Now, the panels for my cabinets are made out of 1/2-inch maple plywood. My doors are 3/4 of an inch. Now, I'll tell you, I was going to make them thinner, but when I thought about that these holes needed to be drilled almost 5/8 of an inch, I said I need 3/4 of an inch, and that's what I decided to do. So I use 3/4 inch doors, and it's maple plywood too, just costs a little bit more. And what I did is you need some kind of face frame to go around the front of it. And this is 1x4 maple board that I ripped in half. So it's about a little less than 1 3/4 inches. And I use that so I can mount my doors onto it. You can see it right here. It's a 3/4 of an inch wide. And that's what I use for my face plates. Here's one right here. Now, while we're talking about cabinet doors, I'm going to give a piece of advice, and you can do whatever you want. But when you build a house and you're building your own house, I always recommend subbing the sheetrock out and the taping, because you can never do it faster than those guys. So what I decided to do with my cabinet doors, I brought them to a cabinet maker. And I brought the plywood to the cabinet maker, and you have to have all your measurements ready to go, because I never saw anybody move so fast with the kind of saws that they have and how fast. 12 doors is what I have on my cabinets. There's 12. They were cut out, and these holes, 3 holes, were drilled by a cabinet builder. So there's 6 holes drilled in each door. Under a half hour. I never saw anything go so fast. 3 holes were drilled at the same exact time. If you don't have that tool to do that, and it's a little jig that drills 3 holes at a time, I'm going to recommend you take your doors to the cabinet builder. They'll be perfectly square. Everything will be perfect with them. And it'll be so quick. So if you have to pay $150 to have this job done, it's better than sit there trying to drill 3 holes one at a time. And that's 6 holes for every door. Now, another thing that I decided to do, and it made my life crazy, was this edge banding. And now I thought about it. Since my cabinets are white maple, and I used white stain on them and then some polyurethane over top of them, I thought this would make my doors stick out a little bit, and it does. It gives a little nice outline. It makes it look a lot better. I'll tell you though, this all had to be done. You have to use contact cement, and it has to be done a certain way. And this is the actual edge banding's wider than the actual door width. So you have to cut it down, and believe me, I didn't have the skills to do this when I started. When I got to the last door, I was really good at it. The last night, actually, I did it. I got pretty good at it. Now, I did all this at night because I was in New York working in end of November. So to do this at the end of November, you can't do it outside because you need 55 degrees for the contact cement. And believe me, doing it inside, at night, you get high and you get sick. And I did it, and I wish I never had to do it like that. It was a pain in the neck, but I'll tell you what, I like the way it looks way better than anything else I could have done. When I built my wall panels, and if you looked at my build for that, part 2 of my build, you will notice that I use cardboard for all my templates. With these cabinets, especially the floor to ceiling, cardboard was not going to cut it. I wasted a lot of time trying to make cardboard happen. Finally, I went to 1/4-inch plywood to use as a template, and it ended up being the smartest decision I made, because when you go to make a template, you're going to have to learn how to scribe, and that's something I'm going to show you very quickly here, how to scribe. Now, when scribing, let's pretend like this is a block of wood, and I would suggest to get a block of wood, and this pencil would be sharp. So this would be a template, the actual template. Now, it has to be held in place square off the floor, because remember, the floors are a reference. So I highly recommend for this process to have 2 people doing this, because it'll make it go a lot easier, where one person can be responsible for making sure the template, and this is a template, okay, to make sure it's square. And the other person will take this block of wood and a pencil and run, I'll try to make it so you can see, run the pencil right down the wall. And none of this stuff would be in the way. It would just be straight down, where you would just run it straight down and you get a mark. So every time you cut the template, you're losing 3/4 of an inch. But I'm going to tell you what happens. Look at that line. It's almost perfect. Almost perfect. Here's another secret, another reason why you use 1/4-inch plywood for your template is you could get a rasp file and file it and make it perfect before you cut your panels out of that. Now, I'm going to tell you, I actually had to use the rasp file on the panels sometimes, and at some of the places where you have to use it is up here when you come up to the ceiling, because that is a tricky place, because you got to remember the bottom of the floor, the bottom of the panel is perfectly on the floor. Then up here you got to make it so it matches the contour of the ceiling. That was a little tricky. I really hope you got this, because this is really key.